Hello, this is a sideshow. I'm Theodore Parker, and today is Wednesday, January 29th, 2025. The weather in this area, Lexington, Kentucky, USA. The high today will be around 52. Currently, before sunrise, we're looking at 40 degrees and feels like 34. Mainly sunny today, highs in the low 50s and lows in the upper 20s. Northeast tells we'll face big weather swings this week. Rain expected Thursday afternoon here in Lexington. Sunrise today will be at 7:44 a.m. Sunset at 5:58 p.m. The wind, about 9 miles per hour. The AQI is good at 38. Across the country and other places, weather-related news. Boston faces threat of snow showers as Clipper system dives through northeast. Space debris lights up night sky across Midwest. Worst flooding in decades hits France. In a video, watch car after car slams into snowy pileup, northern China. Again, this is a sideshow. I'm Theodore Parker, and if you're watching, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Again, Wednesday, January 29th, 2025, the news. Whether you say so or not, some of us are ready for the smelling salts when speaking about the new Trump administration. Some might say this is not what I signed up for. Others might say it's his first 100 days, he can do what he wants, and that's not to be taken out of context. Either way, the first 100 days is for the new president to sign executive orders. And boy, do we have a lot of them. Whether you're a young person listening to what's being said at home, or an older person who has a few of these administrations, have seen a few of these administrations come and go, you have to agree there's an element of surprise built in. So let's take a look at where we are so far with just a few of these executive orders. First one is ICE, I-C-E. I have an article which also has audio from right here in Lexington, Kentucky. And it includes a comment from our mayor. Excuse me. And is as follows. It's entitled, Mayor Urges Calm and Respect of First Immigration-Related Arrest in Kentucky under the new Trump administration. Mayor urges calm amid report of first immigration-related arrest in Kentucky under the new Trump administration. Okay, so this is coming from UK, WUKY. So since it's an audio, I'm just going to let you listen to it. It's less than 2 minutes, so you can hear the sound of the voices and things of that nature. So here we go.
The Lexington Herald Leader reports federal authorities acting under Trump orders arrested a man on Monday following his appearance on a state court charge in Madison County. The arrest of an individual already charged is in line with how ICE has traditionally operated in the state. In Lexington, Mayor Linda Gordon says ICE has had a desk inside the city's jails for years and inmates have been vetted by the agency. She says she's aware of only 2 inmates in the last 3 years who have been of interest to ICE.
What that says is we don't have violent criminals here who are undocumented. And that's a good thing for Lexington. My sense is they're focusing on other places, and we want people to be calm, and we don't know of any activity here.
On the state level, Jeremy Bacon with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement addressed a question about whether there is enough personnel and resources to undertake mass enforcement efforts during a hearing late last year. Without a presidential order at the time, Bacon had this response.
I can tell you that we're limited manpower-wise, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
But reports of hundreds of arrests in the first week of Trump's presidency signal changes, the extent of which is uncertain at this point. While the administration has vowed to focus on detention and deportation of undocumented immigrants who have committed crimes, NBC News reports the latest numbers are casting some doubt on that promise. Data obtained by the network showed at least 566 people arrested nationwide on Sunday had not committed any crimes and were only detained because they lacked legal authorization to remain in the United States. For WUKY News, I'm Josh James.
So, there you have it firsthand from our mayor, from city officials, and from the person reporting about ICE as it is being used by the Trump administration. So when it's put like that, that's a little better understanding than just having things pushed up in the air and not knowing what's going to happen next. So next up is President Trump's wanting to rename places that already have names. The reaction from the leaders of said places speaks for itself. Now, this article is called Google Caves to Donald Trump's Executive Order and will change Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America on its maps. So, we'll get into this one, and this is from Fortune magazine. Google said Monday it will enforce changes to the U.S. map, including changing the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, following an executive order President Donald Trump passed his first day back in office. Google will be making some changes to its U.S. maps in accordance with one of President Donald Trump's first executive actions of his second term. The tech giant said Monday it would update its maps, changing the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Trump signed an executive order January 20 to change certain geographic names to honor American greatness and promote the extraordinary heritage of our nation and ensure future generations of American citizens celebrate the legacy of our American heroes. The changes overseen by the Secretary of the Interior also include reverting the name of Alaskan mountain Denali to Mount McKinley, a reversal of a change introduced under former President Barack Obama in 2015 to honor Alaska's native population. Google will also refer to Denali as Mount McKinley. We received a few questions about naming within Google Maps, Google said in a post on X Monday. We have long-standing practice of applying names changes when they have been updated in official government sources. Before Google makes any changes to its maps, it awaits an update to the government database Geographic Names Information System, part of the U.S. Geological Survey. Trump's executive order criticized Obama's decision to change the name of Mount McKinley to Denali, saying the nomenclature was an affront to 25th President William McKinley, who, like Trump, championed tariffs and U.S. manufacturing. McKinley never visited Alaska, but a gold prospector advocated for America's tallest mountain be named in 1896 for McKinley, the Republican presidential candidate who was a large proponent of the gold standard. The native Athabascan people of Alaska have long called the mountain Denali. Texas enforcement of geographic name changes. Following the Department of the Interior's August 2015 order, Google updated the name of the mountain to Denali within days, while Microsoft-owned Bing continues to refer to the site as Mount McKinley on its maps. Though Google has abided by government-ordered name changes in the past, the announcement it will enforce Trump's executive orders comes amid a wave of changes in the tech industry that reflect a bending toward the agenda of the new White House administration. Google donated $1 million to Trump's inauguration fund earlier this month, and Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google's parent company Alphabet, sat among fellow tech giants like Apple CEO Tim Cook and Meta boss Mark Zuckerberg, who also donated 7-digit amounts to the fund at the January 20 ceremony. Meanwhile, Meta announced earlier this month it would end third-party fact-checking on its apps, beginning in the US, and instead use X-style community notes, appeasing a wave of conservatives who previously criticized the company for not prioritizing free expression. Google did not respond to Fortune's request for comment. Thus far, Apple has continued to use the pre-executive action names for the locations and did not respond to Fortune's request for comment on plans to change any names on its maps. In Mexico, the name of the body of water will remain the Gulf of Mexico. Around the world, Google users will see both names, a convention Google uses for geographic names that vary across countries, the company said. So, I hope that helps some. So from this information, you can see that it's not the first time that somebody's feathers have gotten ruffled over name changes. So the next one speaks for itself. It's called Trump Signs Executive Order Aimed at Barring Gender Transitions for People Under 19. So here we go. And this is from Forbes. Top line, President Donald Trump signed an executive order Tuesday seeking to limit access to gender transition surgeries for people younger than 19, marking the president's latest policy move against transgender rights. Key facts. The order, titled Protecting Children from Chemical and Surgical Mutilation, looks to stop federal programs from funding, sponsoring, promoting, assisting, or supporting gender transitions for individuals under 19 years of age. Trump said in the order the U.S. will rigorously enforce all laws that prohibit or limit these destructive and life-altering procedures. Federal insurance programs are targeted in the order, with TRICARE and Medicaid being ordered to exclude gender transitions for those under 19 from their coverage. The order says chemical and surgical mutilation includes puberty blockers, the use of hormones like estrogen and testosterone, and surgical procedures. The order also instructs the Secretary of Health and Human Services, which would be Robert F. Kennedy Jr., if he is confirmed by the Senate on Wednesday, to publish a review of the existing literature on best practices for promoting the health of children who assert gender dysphoria, rapid onset gender dysphoria, or other identity-based confusion. Tangent. Trump's order against gender transitions came a day after the president also ordered a ban on transgender people serving in the military. The order was challenged in court by 6 active duty transgender service members and 2 transgender people planning to enlist. Jennifer Levi, the Senior Director of Transgender and Queer Rights at GLBTQ Legal Advocates and Defenders, said in a statement the policy betrays fundamental American values of equal opportunity and judging people on their merit. Key background. Trump vowed during his campaign to roll back protections for the transgender community and has since backed up his promises with multiple executive orders. On his first day in office, the president signed an executive order declaring the federal government would only recognize two sexes, male and female, to be assigned at birth. The order does not recognize transgender, binary, or intersex people. Trump's orders targeting the transgender community at the federal level adds on to a surge in state laws barring or limiting access to gender-affirming care. So there you have that information. The next one has to do with the workforce, and it's entitled, Trump administration offers roughly 2 million federal workers a buyout to resign. And this is from NBC News. An email went out to federal workforce Tuesday evening with a subject line that ties to Elon Musk. So here we go. President Donald Trump's administration is offering federal workers a chance to take a deferred resignation, which would mean they agree now to resign but get paid through September. A senior administration official told NBC News that they expect 5 to 10% of the federal workforce to quit, which they estimate could lead to around $100 billion in savings. All full-time federal employees are eligible except for members of the military, employees of the U.S. Postal Service, positions related to immigration enforcement and national security, and other jobs excluded by agencies. American taxpayers pay for the salaries of federal government employees, and therefore deserving employees working on their behalf who actually show up to work in our wonderful federal buildings, also paid for by taxpayers, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said in a statement. If they don't want to work in the office and contribute to making America great again, then they are free to choose a different line of work. And the Trump administration will provide a very generous payout of 8 months. It continues. The offer went out to the federal workforce through a new system the Trump administration set up that gives officials the ability to email all federal employees at once. The email included a draft resignation letter for them to review. If a person wishes to resign, they will be able to reply with the word resign. The resignation period will begin Tuesday and go through February 6th. If you choose to remain in your current position, we thank you for your renewed focus on serving the American people to the best of your abilities and look forward to working together as part of an improved federal workforce. The email that will be sent to federal workers reads, at this time, we cannot give you full assurance regarding the certainty of your position or agency, but should your position be eliminated, you will be treated with dignity and will be afforded the protections in place for such positions. The email also tells workers that if they resign under this program, you will retain all pay and benefits regardless of your daily workload, and we exempted from all applicable in-person work requirements until September 30th, 2025. Or earlier if you choose to accelerate your resignation for any reason. AFGE National President Everett Kelly sharply condemned the Trump administration's email, saying it should not be viewed as voluntary. The number of civil servants hasn't meaningfully changed since 1970, but there are more Americans than ever who rely on government services. Kelly said. Purging the federal government of dedicated career civil servants will have vast unintended consequences that will cause chaos for the Americans who depend on a functioning federal government. Between the flurry of anti-worker executive orders and policies, it is clear that the Trump administration's goal is to turn the federal government into a toxic environment where workers cannot stay even if they want to, he added. Tech billionaire Elon Musk, who is now in charge of Trump's new Department of Government Efficiency, famously sent a similar email to employees shortly after he took over Twitter, which he renamed X, asking them to opt in to keep working at the company. White House officials wouldn't say whether he was involved in the current effort. But the subject line of the email that will be sent to federal workers is fork in the road. It's the same subject line Musk used in that email to Twitter employees. And Musk now has a post pinned on X of an art piece he commissioned called A Fork in the Road. So that concludes that. So you can kind of see how when you get a few details on these executive orders, how it may or may not affect you and or people that you know, and especially the people that are involved in these situations and circumstances. And then to kind of round it up, you got this little feeling of anticipation. This next one, whether you know it or not, there are people, scientists, who keep track of how far down the path to self-destruction we are. So this article is from them, and it's called Doomsday Clock Moves Closer Than Ever to Midnight as Scientists Warn of Disaster. And this is from ABC News. Scientists and global leaders revealed on Tuesday that the doomsday clock has been reset to the closest humanity has ever come to self-annihilation. For the first time in 3 years, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist moved the metaphorical clock up 1 second to 89 seconds before midnight, the theoretical doomsday mark. It is determination of the Science and Security Board of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists that the world has not made significant progress on essential risks threatening all of humanity. We thus move the clock forward. Daniel Holtz, chair of the organization's Science and Security Board, said during a live-streamed unveiling of the clock's ominous new time. In setting the clock closer to midnight, we send a stark signal. Because the world is already perilously closer to the precipice, any move towards midnight should be taken as an indication of extreme danger and an unmistakable warning. Every second of delay reversing course increases the probability of global disaster. For the past 2 years, the clock has stayed at 90 seconds to midnight, with scientists citing the ongoing war in Ukraine and an increase in the risk of nuclear escalation as the reason. Among the reasons for moving the clock 1 second closer to midnight, Holt said, were the further increase in nuclear risk, climate change, biological threats, and advances in disruptive technologies like artificial intelligence. Meanwhile, arms control treaties are in tatters, and there are active conflicts involving nuclear powers. The world's attempt to deal with climate change remain inadequate as most governments fail to enact financing and policy initiatives necessary to halt global warming. Holt said, noting that 2024 was the hottest year ever recorded on the planet. Advances in an array of disruptive technology, including biotechnology, artificial intelligence, and in space, have far outpaced policy, regulation, and a thorough understanding of their consequences, Holt said. Holt said of all the dangers that went into the organization's decision to recalibrate the clock were exacerbated by what he described as a potent threat multiplier. The spread of misinformation, disinformation, and conspiracy theories that degrade the communication ecosystem and increasingly blur the line between truth and falsehood. I'm gonna stop here. This really has nothing to do, but Lauren Sanchez, fiance to Bezos, was on her yacht and police boarded the yacht and stories started to fly. So she said, falsehood can travel around the world before truth can pull up its pants. Continuing, what is the doomsday clock? The doomsday clock was designed to be a graphic warning to the public about how close humanity has come to destroying the world with potentially dangerous technologies. The clock was established in 1947 by Albert Einstein, Manhattan Project Director J. Robert Oppenheimer, and University of Chicago scientists who helped develop the first atomic weapons as part of the Manhattan Project. Created less than 2 years after the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan during World War II, the clock was initially set at 7 minutes before midnight. Over the past 7 decades, the clock has been adjusted forward and backward multiple times. The furthest the minute hand has been pushed back from the cataclysmic midnight hour was 17 minutes in 1991 after the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty was revived and then President George H.W. Bush and Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev announced reductions in nuclear arsenals of their respective countries. For the past 77 years, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, a nonprofit media organization comprised of world leaders and Nobel laureates, has announced how close it believes the world is to collapse due to nuclear war, climate change, and most certainly the COVID-19 pandemic. So, that's the information that I can provide you on some of these executive orders. And that does not leave you still wondering what's going on, so I hope it helped. For my part, I think the little bit of apprehension or not knowing what's going to happen next is related to Donald Trump having been convicted of having 34 felony convictions and sitting in the Oval Office. And that's being said in the context, there are some people that have been arrested and have lost, quote unquote, everything. So just kind of keep things in mind sometimes when you observe how things play out. But it could be said that with Donald Trump having 34 felony convictions, you could add to it, birds of a feather flock together. And as Fred Stanford said, shady like Grady. Okay, top stories for today, Wednesday, January 29th, 2025. First one, Pentagon pulling General Milley's security detail and clearance immediately, may face demotion in retirement. Number 2, Google caves to Donald Trump's executive order and will change Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America on its maps. Number 3, Denmark to increase military spending in North Atlantic by $2 billion amid row with Trump over Greenland. And number 4, Wisconsin mom urges Trump administration to launch pivotal probe into alleged race-based discrimination against her son. And number 5, Trump's government worker buyouts are feeling a lot like Twitter 2022. Next one, man charged with carrying Molotov cocktails into Capitol, allegedly targeted Bassett, Hegseth, and Johnson. Next, Trump asked SpaceX to go get 2 stranded International Space Station astronauts. They're not stranded. Next, Trump administration offers roughly 2 million federal workers a buyout to resign. And I'll just add this one point to that. If a worker is close to retirement age, then that kind of fits, into what might be to their advantage. If you're in the middle of the workforce group age-wise, then it wouldn't behoove you to take a buyout from the federal government and still have to seek work in the private sector. So in that, I can kind of see the offer. Next one, Trump signs executive order aimed at that way you can, bring in young, fresh faces and strengthen your workforce and go on from there in that context. Trump signs executive order aimed at barring gender transitions for people under 19. And number 10, what does Trump's federal funding freeze mean for people who get aid? So those are your top 10 stories for today, Wednesday, January 29th, 2025. This time next week, we will be into February 2025. So before I take off for today or conclude the program, I mentioned this the last part of 2024, and it's about a business here in Lexington, which was called Creoles on Short Street. It was a live music venue, and I didn't get there like every weekend, but every time I went, I enjoyed myself, and I had a good time. It's a friendly atmosphere. So they were, according to original articles, they were supposed to open in their new location on Broadway in August. And I've been around there, it's not open. So anyway, this is an update to that. To those of you who have been to Creoles when it was on Short Street and are anticipating the opening of the new venue, Melvy's on Broadway. So here we go. The Lexington Herald Leader is running 25 businesses to watch in 2025. So this is the first of those articles. Here we go. Lexington, Kentucky. Restaurant owner opening private dining club, rooftop bar coming. And this is just a personal thing for me. I know you cannot judge a book by its cover, and you cannot just look at me and tell my experiences in life. So I will say this when it comes to business. You get everything when you're trying to get yourself positioned, from you can't do that here to I'm not the person you should be talking to, until you land on your spot. So here's the article. The Herald Leader is profiling 25 individuals we predict will be making news in 2025. Who? Aisha Allen, former co-owner of Creole Bar on Short Street, soon to open the Melroy private dining club on Broadway. Background: Allen, with her husband Dougie, purchased a historic building at 144 North Broadway, and she has been renovating it to house her own new concept, the Melroy. In summer 2024, they sold the building on Short Street that had been the home of Creole to Chef Jonathan Lundy and his business partner, T.J. Cox, who reopened it as 310. Why 2025 will be memorable? The Melroy is expected to open in late February with the bar and dining room available for members. Eventually, the space will expand to include a rooftop bar overlooking Lexington. Allen calls it a city club as opposed to a country club, a space where people can come during the day, work on a laptop, and in the evenings have a nice drink and dinner. Memberships are still available, Allen said. What others are saying about Allen. Through both personal and professional experience, I know Aisha to be a true champion of community, said Martina Barksdale, Director of Communications for Visit Lex. As an entrepreneur, she weaves inclusivity and belonging into the very fabric of her work. Her passion and unwavering commitment to Lexington are a constant source of inspiration. Why is 2025 such an important year for you and your organization? I think the Melroy in the summer is going to be a great addition to downtown, Allen said. It will inspire people to bring in more concepts that will bring more culture and energy to the city. She also has other ventures coming. She recently purchased a food truck, which will be called Sound Bites. Beginning in the spring, it will park at Broadway and Church, serving Southern comfort foods and playing music. On the horizon, she and her husband, Dougie, are looking for a space to open a music venue, and she's launching a tequila brand. Co-owner of Justin's House of Bourbon, partners sell Downtown Lexington Bar, and it continues, but that is the end of the article. And since February is Black History Month, wish her the best. This is The Side Show. I'm Theodore Parker. That's it. Hashtag.